This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good morning, Tuscaloosa. Good morning, Tuscaloosa, the internet world. West Alabama, how we doing today on a Wednesday? Happy hump day. Hope you and yours are doing well. You're watching the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, BamaCentral.com. You're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find the Joe Gaither Show. We appreciate everybody who's subscribed, rated, reviewed. Hit yourself a little like on the program. Cam Metzger recently went out on Apple Podcasts and left us a review. So I appreciate you, Cam Metzger, for doing that. Everybody who leaves us a review helps spread the algorithm right there. We're live in the Derek Daniels State Farm Studios right here off McFarland Boulevard. You can find him right here past the Tiger Rock on the left. Call him for all of your insurance needs, home, life, auto insurance needs at 205-758-3391. Like a good neighbor, Derek Daniel is there. Call and see how much Derek can save you today. 205-758-3391. And of course, we're brought to you by Purple Turtle Roofing as well. For all of your roofing needs, residential or commercial, you can find Purple Turtle Roofing at roofturtle.com. You can check out all their looks, their metal roofs, their shingle roofs, everything they've got going on in the roofing world. They can take care of you. Schedule your free roof inspection right there at roofturtle.com or call them today at 877-787-6635. Have a lot of fun today with our friends Theo Fernandez and Hunter De Siver. You follow Theo Fernandez at Theo Fernandez _ on the Twitter machine, writing all things Alabama athletics for us at BamaCentral.com and helping Fox Sports with the World Cup and summer baseball right now. Make sure you follow him right there for all that action at Theo Fernandez _ And we're also joined by our friend Hunter De Siver. You can follow him at Hunter De Siver on the Twitter machine, writing all things for Alabama athletics, leading our coverage for Alabama men's basketball. We're going to have a lot of fun today with our friends, talking about some football breakout players, some freshmen who stand to make an impact this fall. We'll get Hunter De Siver's perspective on the NBA Combine here this week, and will we get Amari Allen back out of the NBA draft back to Tuscaloosa for his sophomore season? All that and more this morning. So we're gonna have a lot of fun today with that. Theo Fernandez, look beautiful this morning. Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Got the day off. Went for a little run earlier, so I've got a lot of energy. I'm in a good mood right now.
You went for a run already? I mean, you're 2 hours behind us, so it's 7:20. You're already up and at 'em 5 miles in?
5 miles. We're a long way from that, Joe, but we can say a good 2.5 miles is what I was able to pull off, so I'm happy with that right now.
2.5 miles is very, very good. Hunter, how are your 2.5 miles up in Staten Island this morning?
Long Island, but all good. It's all good. There's a slight difference, but
are you offended by the Staten Island reference, Hunter?
Tiny bit.
Okay, for the dummy that I am, aren't they like right next to each other?
They are nearby. Yes.
Okay. I apologize. Long Island.
No,
did you get out and run this morning?
No, I just came back from a haircut. My barber that I usually go to, I schedule an appointment with him, and I show up at 9 a.m. He's not there, and then another barber calls him, and they're having a yelling match on the phone, in Russian, by the way. So not even English. And turns out he wasn't feeling well, so I just went with the next barber available. So, but yeah, that was my morning entertainment. But I'm happy.
There we go. Your haircut looks very, very good. I appreciate your time. How's your summer going? I know you've been kind of away from Tuscaloosa, getting back to the fam for a little bit. You'll be back very soon. But how is your summer going?
Yeah, it's good. Bit more relaxing than I expected so far. I mean, the off season, every time it comes, I realize there's barely anything going on. I'm in charge of breaking news today, and knock on wood, I'm not sure if we're really going to get any. Now that I say that, I'm sure something crazy like Nick Saban's going to come back or be a defensive coordinator or something. But I mean, it's definitely a bit quieter. I was in Aruba a couple weeks ago for a week. Appreciate you guys for, I guess, taking over while I was gone for a week, but I'm happy to be back.
Well, as you said, it hasn't been that crazy, so your trip to Aruba didn't really put any kind of strain on anybody, so we appreciate that very, very much. You enjoying your summer vacation. Why don't we start with football, because football pays the bills. We'll move into the NBA Combine towards the back end of the program. We've been talking about the NBA Combine all week long. I believe the boys are on the court today doing 5-on-5s, and so we'll see how they look with live basketball action. But let's start with football because, Hunter, you took some initiative. I appreciate that very, very much. Took some initiative in our chats and said, hey, we got to start writing some football offseason content. Can I write 5 breakout candidates for 2026? So if you guys are paying attention to BamaCentral.com, you read that on Monday, where Hunter De Siver wrote Red Morgan, wrote Lucia Brooks, wrote London Simmons, and keep scrolling, Caleb Edwards, and lastly QB Reese as your top 5 breakout candidates. Theo, you read this piece and your reaction was what?
My reaction was very, very low-hanging fruit, if I'm being honest. No picks that I disagree with, but
right, yeah,
we went for the easy guess. Nothing wrong.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There's a bunch of guys, and I just picked if I could only pick 5, I'd pick them, and it was a pretty easy article to write. But I was happy with how it came out. I guess the people that I left off, I made sure to include honorable mentions, and I said right off the bat, I'm not gonna put Michael Carroll and Dijon Lee because that's just they're obvious choices. So, but yeah.
All right, so let's start with the top. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Theo.
No, all you.
Let's start right from the top. Red Morgan. I mean, we've been debating, we've been discussing the defensive back room for the 2025-2026 season and how loaded it is. What kind of role do you envision Hunter De Siver, Red Morgan playing this year? Is he going to start at Husky? Do you think he's going to be able to fight off these freshmen? How do you see Red Morgan's future this fall?
I think week 1, he's definitely going to start at Husky. I think that's very, very likely. I mean, since he's been in Alabama, he's tried out safety and he's tried the nickel, Husky, whatever. He's also tried out corner. But I think for week 1 only, just to start, he would be the Husky. And who knows what would happen from then on. I think he'll stay at that position the rest of the time. But he was my top breakout candidate just because he's filling in for Deshaun Jones, who he kind of alternated snaps with throughout last season. And there were a lot of times where Red Morgan looked a bit better and he hit a bit harder and he was a bit faster. And I mean, the thing with him is I remember in the spring, I asked him, who do you model your game after? And he goes, Brian Branch. So right there, that kind of dings something in your head. Now, I'm not expecting him to be a 2-time Pro Bowler in his first season as the expected starter, but I'm looking forward to what he does this season.
How do you determine, really, how do you see this defensive back field? Because it's very clear. You got Brian Keon playing safety. You got Xavier Brown and Dijon Lee playing corner. Husky is really the only place that doesn't have the established. I mean, Red got a lot of time and played a lot of action right there. So it's not like he's a newbie right there, but it wasn't the full-on starter. How do you look at the defensive backfield as far as we look at 2024, their first year, Coach Womack's first year, they were throwing every defensive back that had a scholarship out there. And a lot of it was out of necessity. But now you're loaded with talent. You're still looking at Ivan Taylor, Zay Mincy. You're looking at this guy, Carmelo O'Neal, Jordan Edmonds. You can talk about Jaira Edwards. Like, will we see a heavy rotation that we saw in 2024? You saw a little bit of it last year. There was some rotation last year with Amari and Dijon across series. How do you determine, or how do you decide for this defensive back room, especially when it comes to the Husky?
Yeah, it's definitely different from all the other positions because I feel like we knew what the 2026 defensive back room was going to be before the 2025 season even ended, or at least until we heard that Bray and Keon were back. So right off the bat, Keon, Sab, and Bray Hubbard will start at safety, both safety spots. That's a foregone conclusion. Then you got Xavier Brown and Dijon Lee, both definite starters. And then from there, like you said, you got Red Morgan or Ivan Taylor or some other combination of players. Could be a Husky or just alternate in. It's a position group that I feel is kind of set in stone. And I remember, Keon Sabb, like if he's asked this, if any cornerback or defense back's going to be asked, are you the best defensive back room in the nation? They're going to say yes. But I haven't necessarily looked at other defensive back rooms. But there's talent all over the place. And when you speak of depth, there are plenty of guys, like you said, Ivan Taylor, Dre Kirkpatrick, Carmelo O'Neal. We might see Chuck McDonald, who redshirted last year. Alabama's a team where hopefully a lot of their games should be decided by the third quarter or early fourth quarter. Not every game, of course. They're in the SEC, which is very challenging, but I definitely expect to see a lot of turnover and some death moves and all that, and a lot of substitutions during games, but I wouldn't say nearly as much as 2024.
I look at this defensive back room and I see 7 guys who I think would absolutely start on basically any team in the nation, which is going to be Morgan, Dijon Lee, Sabb, Hubbard, Xavier, Ivan Taylor, Zay Mincy.
Okay.
Dre Kirkpatrick, 7.5. I think he would on a lot of places. I'm not going to fully put him on that list just because of how last season ended, and I guess there are still a couple question marks. And then you just look at the rest of the room, right? Like you got Chuck McDonald, Jair Edwards, who Jair Edwards is probably going to play his way into a big role here. He would just about anywhere. Yeah. Jordan Edmonds had such a big camp, or I guess A-Day, but we hear so many good things about him. Like the talent is just too much, man, around this room for it to not be the best unit in the country. I genuinely do believe that is the bar for this year's unit.
Yeah, this year's defensive back group is just absolutely loaded. Hunter, you didn't write any front 7 guys. Obviously you had QB Reese on your list as your last breakout player, but does Alabama have enough on the front 7 to give the back? Because the backing guys can be the best players in the world, but if you don't get any pressure, then it just is what it is. It becomes easier for the quarterback against good defensive backs. Do you have any confidence in Alabama's defensive front to support the back end by getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks?
Yeah, the reason why I didn't really put any front 7 guys in that breakout list is because I kind of took the definition of breakout as you were here last year and now you're going to probably start this year, but you were kind of a sub last year. There's really no one on the defensive line this year that has that case. James Smith, Quay Rousseau, not Jan St. Pierre, I'm blanking, Jordan Renaud, a couple other guys are gone. They transferred out. Then you got LT Overton, Tim Keenan, and then you got the linebackers, Deontay Lawson, Nikai Hill Green, and Justin Jefferson, all of which are gone or in the league, whatever. This is a totally revamped front 7, and it's one of the bigger questions is, can these guys get sacks? It's been an issue for Kane Womack's defenses really since he's gotten here. It's pretty much the only weakness, to be honest. I think they were pretty proficient everywhere else. So that's definitely a question. I don't remember if I put any honorable mentions for any front 7 guys, but I was thinking about Edric Hill, who they always talk about as like he's so smooth, and Tim Keenan said like he emulated like his game after him sometimes, and all this, all that, but he still doesn't have that much time on the field. He had a decent amount of time last year, but I think him and like someone like Jeremiah Beeman, they could make some noise, but in terms of the interior defensive line, I'm not sure it's there just yet to get a bunch of sacks and tackles for loss, but you're looking at like Jan St. Pierre. I wasn't going to make him a breakout because he broke out last year, but like he could be an All-American caliber player. So I could see the sack total increasing, but overall the cornerbacks and the defensive backs is what makes this defense so special.
Now you do have London Simmons on the list. What is your expectation for London Simmons? And Theo, take that out as well. What's your expectations for London Simmons?
Yeah. He was a guy who, when Tim Keenan went down before the season, we're thinking of guys like, who could start over him against Florida State and ULM. And we're thinking of a bunch of names, but his name isn't really coming up because he's kind of I think he was just a 3-star freshman, but clearly he did something in camp and he showed out during the season. And every time he played, he made a play pretty much. I don't remember his exact numbers. I think he had around like 15 tackles and like a sack or two, a couple tackles for loss. But he's definitely someone I'm really looking forward to seeing, because with this entire revamped defensive line, I think he is the only one that I would say right now, besides, I guess, Jan St. Pierre, that is a guaranteed starter and could make some noise this season.
Yeah, just a guy who overachieved by just about every metric last year. Had the opportunity. Really shined in it. I think that's not a stretch to say. I think you're coming in expecting some pretty solid things out of London Simmons. He's not necessarily expected to be a game wrecker up the middle, right? But you don't really need that out of him. You need a solid baseline of play. You need no holes in the middle, no getting pushed around and giving up plus yardage on runs to the other team, just a routine, 1st and 10 draw. You want to be able to handle that. So I think that London Simmons gives you a B-level defensive lineman up the middle with the ceiling that is, it's a very undefined ceiling, right? We don't really know what levels London Simmons could reach, but the early returns are just objectively promising given what he did as a 3-star freshman for you.
Yeah, coming onto campus as a summer enrollee and really going on to carve out a role. Now, a lot of that was due to Tim Keenan and Jeremiah Beeman's injury, but being right there ready to compete, I think as a true freshman played fairly well. And so I am excited about what he's going to do with a full year in the program, full summer in the strength room, and that sort of thing. I think that's a good pick. I think that's a good pick, Hunter. And he'll be he's going to be a really pivotal piece for that defensive front, because you got to get some disruption up front. I'm really excited for the 2 transfers from the West Coast, Terrence Green and Devin Tompkins, but I think London Simmons needs to have a step forward in his game. Keeping going with this 5 breakout players. Theo, go ahead.
Are you about to move it to offense?
Yes, I have a question for you for the offense, if that's okay.
Okay. Before you do that, I want to bring up one name that I forget if I brought him up on Monday or not when we talked about it, but what are your thoughts on Justin Hill, Hunter? Because I think
he was. Yeah, I think I listed him as an honorable mention. Okay. He had a decent amount of snaps last year as a freshman, which was kind of unexpected because there's a lot of Wolf linebackers. Obviously, Quay Russaw got hurt, and that plays a role. But I feel like there was a couple of times where Justin Hill kind of played on that inside area, and where there's a lot of inexperience there now. I could see maybe him carving out a bit of a role there. I'm not sure if he's going to start, but he looked very impressive on A-Day, and I thought he looked good when we were recording the practice footage for the 10-minute viewing periods. He was definitely a breakout candidate for me, where I thought about making him one of the top 5, but I thought he was just outside of it. He's definitely one of the guys I'm looking forward to watching, just as a defender, as a sophomore player, because a lot of guys from a year 1 to year 2 gap, they make a big difference, and I think he's definitely a candidate for that. Now, I don't think he's going to get 10 sacks and 20 tackles for loss this season, but I think this is a good way to show that as a junior in 2027, he could really thrive.
Wait, I'm sorry. Did you say you saw him moving inside or staying out, Wolf?
There was a couple times I thought last year where he moved a little inside, to replace Nakai or Justin or Deontay, but it wasn't often.
Okay. So I'm going to say, I like Justin Hill a lot as a kind of pass rusher who goes under the radar and emerges as a clear, this is one of our lead pass rushers for next season.
Right.
But I think you might have some problems if you're moving him to the inside. Nothing against Justin Hill, but more so just, what does that say about the other guys in the room, right, that you brought in to be interior linebackers? I think Alabama should hope they don't have to move Justin Hill to the inside.
Right.
I think that he plays in certain packages on the inside, but largely plays Wolf. I think he largely plays Wolf, and then in very few packages, there will be you'll get a lot of pass rushers on the field, and he's going to probably be bouncing around. I think there's the more the more common adjustment will be to have Justin Hill playing Wolf and to kick Yanzio across to play Bandit. Is probably what's going to be the more common adjustment on passing downs, in my opinion, so that you can get both those guys rushing the passer at the same time. If I set the over-under, Theo, at 6.5 for Justin Hill sacks, are you taking over or under? Is that way too high, or is that way too low,
Yeah.
or are you easily playing one side or the other? Reset the over. 6.5 is in my gut, but I can be moved either way.
Look, I like Justin Hill, but 6.5 is, I think, like I'd set it at 3.5. I think that's a fair line for him, for a guy who 3.5 might be a little. 4.5 is where I'm setting Justin Hill's sack line at, and I think like that feels like a toss up to me. I think I'd lean under at 4.5, but it's a close one.
Yeah, I think it's a good line. I would say he would get 3.5 sacks
3.5
this season.
We'll see for Justin Hill. I think that Justin Hill's a great candidate for this list as a breakout player, because I think they're going to see a lot of packages with him and Yanzi out there at the same time, allowing both those guys to try to get after the passer. Theo, let me ask you: Does Lucia Brooks count for this exercise? You opened up the conversation by saying obvious fruit or low hanging fruit. Lucia Brooks played in all 14 games last year, 32 catches, 441, and yes, just the 2 touchdowns. It was both of them against Oklahoma in that college football playoff game. Does Lucia Brooks count?
Yeah, like this was just the most egregious one, Hunter. What are we doing? What are we doing?
It's too obvious.
He's in the Dijon Lee, Michael Carroll group, man.
I thought about that very much. Yeah. That's what I was thinking while I was writing his bio. I'm like, should I really put him on here, or is it too obvious? I kept him on there anyways. I probably could have left him off and just included him saying, but I mean, he didn't apply to those rules where he was a starter last season. He was the 4th guy every single time, every single week, except for week 1. That was Rico Scott. And I think week 2 as well. But the guys in front of him were Isaiah Horton, who's now transferred, Jeremy Bernard, who's now playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then you still have Ryan Coleman-Williams. So, yes, Lazier is going to be the number 2 receiver. He may even be number 1. Who knows? But I felt like I should put him in there just because he didn't apply to the rules that I totally made up. And I don't know. We don't really write too much about him often. We only spoke to him once last season. So I was like, let's just add him in there.
All right. So on that note, Hunter, like, what do you think his kind of production looks like this year? Because I have been riding off a hunch that we may be in for a little bit of a letdown out of Brooks.
Sophomore slump.
As somebody who kind of rose to the occasion last year due to the, I guess, opportunities to get on the field, right? The receivers struggling, Ryan Williams not having the season he wanted, and here's Brooks stepping up, really talented freshman, does some really good stuff. How do you avoid the sophomore slump now that you're in a feature role? I
mean, it's kind of similar to Devontae Smith in terms of size. Lazier's even smaller than him. He's by a couple inches, and I think they're probably around the same weight. So people are always going to throw around, oh, he might get injured because he's so small and all that. But other than that, I mean, if you get an increased role after a freshman year where you're basically this fringe 4-star who wasn't really highly recruited, has multiple games where you make big plays, like against Mizzou. I think it was Mizzou, where you had like a 3rd down catch on like 3rd and like very long.
4th and 8.
Yeah. Okay. 4th down. Yeah. And he iced the game. And then against Oklahoma in the college football playoff on the road, he has 2 touchdowns. He's not even a starting receiver yet. So I think it's tough. I really don't know what the scenario would be other than an injury or something like that where he could have a sophomore slump. I think this receivers room is very talented, but Ryan's the guy, Lottie's the guy, and that 3rd player, we still don't know who it's going to be. It was probably going to be Noah Rogers, but he's going to be out for a little while. And so they're probably going to experiment for the first few weeks of the season. They're probably going to throw in Derek Meadows and Sedarian Morgan, Rico Scott, a couple other guys in there just to figure out who could be this starting wide receiver for us. And throughout that whole time, Lazier Brooks is starting, and he'll get a ton of targets. So I don't really see a sophomore slump being a possibility for him.
Well, I love setting over-under lines about as much as anyone who doesn't like gambling possibly could. So what's your over-under for his receiving yards?
Let's see. What do you have last year?
Last year was 32 catches for 441 and 2 touchdowns.
Okay. I would say over-under would be like 49.5 catches. That sounds right. Let's go with 649.5 yards and 5.5 touchdowns. So I don't think he's going to be an All-American.
Let me go under on all three.
Under on all three. Okay.
I'm with you, Joe.
Little high?
I think Alabama will be playing wide receiver 2 by committee. I think it'll be a 2A, 2B, 2C. When Noah Rogers comes back, maybe even 2D. Like, I really do think it will be just a mix of a bunch of guys making plays out there, and everyone knows they're talented. Everyone knows they're high-level football players. And maybe by the end of the year, Sedarian Morgan has separated himself. Maybe it's Lazier Brooks who does take the jump and separates himself. But I think, at least for the first half of the season, it'll just be a lot of these different guys. Defenses don't really know who the feature receivers are on this team, and it'll be a nice mix. And I don't think there will be complaints about the wide receiver production, but I also don't think there will be a second receiver whose numbers necessarily jump off the page.
Yeah, I'm with you, Theo, in the sense that I think that I think that he'll be close to a lot of those numbers that Hunter threw out there. He basically said 50 catches, 650 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I think that he's going to up his catches from 32 to about 40. To about 45, roughly in that range. And I think he's going to up his yards from 440 to right at about 500. And I think 5 touchdowns is about right, but I think it's a little high. So I'm going to go, double last year and go to 4, largely due to the point you're trying to make. I think the wide receiver room is so talented that you kind of keep a rotation high, and you're using a bunch of different roles to where, okay, is Ryan's the clear one, and everybody else gets a large chunk of the second, the second options. And so when you look up the end of the season, I think you're going to look at Derek Meadows for 30 catches. You're going to look at Sedarian Morgan for 30 catches. You're going to look at, I think they're all going to be right around that, right around that 30 catch range, to where there's a wide receiver 1 and a bunch of wide receiver 3s that make up the rest of the production. I think Lazier Brooks is going to find himself in that second category.
Also, remember, you can run like red zone packages where you have Sedarian Morgan, Lazier Brooks, and Caleb Edwards all out there as pass catchers. Like, Lazier Brooks is not necessarily the guy that you are looking to give the ball to in the red zone. A lot of his will come from shiftiness, longer plays, scores. You've got so much talent as far as guys who can catch the ball. You've got big-bodied receivers. I think it's a room that's sorted itself out very nice.
Well, we will see what happens with the Alabama wide receiver room in 2026. Hunter De Siver, we've got 2 more players real quick that you listed as breakout players. QB Reese and Caleb Edwards. We've been debating about the tight end production and how it's going to look. I think that Alabama is still going to play a lot of 12 personnel, even though you don't have Josh Cuevas. You do bring back Danny Ford. You got this kid, Danny Lewis Jr. You've got Josh Ford from transferring in from Oklahoma State. You bring in a nice little tight end and Max Sutter as a true freshman. What do we expect? Is Caleb Edwards going to expand his pass catching role next year? I think he was a fine freshman. Will he expand in his pass catching role? Is that why you have him on the list?
Yeah, I don't think he'll be unbelievable. He's not going to get 1,000 yards or any of that. But I have him on this list because when Josh Cuevas was out, or whether it was Cuevas having a broken foot or broken bone in his foot, whatever it was for 2-3 weeks, or just when Caleb Edwards came in for a couple of plays while Cuevas was on the bench, Caleb Edwards did a good job. I definitely see him excelling this season. I think he had a couple of good plays during the scrimmage. I think the tight end room in terms of a starter, I think it's set with him, but I do understand the possibility of Josh Ford and Marshall Pritchett taking some snaps in there as well. Maybe a little bit of Danny Lewis and I don't know, maybe even Jay Lindsey, but like I don't expect him to do what Josh Cuevas did this past season as a sophomore now, but maybe as a junior. But I'm looking forward to seeing what he does in an offense where the run game is kind of weird and the wide receiving room, as you guys have just said. I mean, I think there's 2 guys that are starters. You guys think it's 1 with a wide receiver 2 by committee. I think it's a wide receiver 3 by committee. Regardless, Caleb Edwards is still there. He's still a reliable option. He'll be good for short routes. I mean, you got 2 QBs in this QB battle, and neither of them have ever started. And a lot of times an inexperienced QB could dump it down to the tight end, and Caleb Edwards has shown that he could do something good with a run after catch, and that's why I put him on there.
Theo, lastly, he's got QB Reese listed right here with the inside linebackers, and we all know that you got Caleb Woodson in as a transfer from Virginia Tech. So the rest of the inside linebackers is Caden Jones, is QB Reese, and you got the trio of sophomores, rising sophomores, and a 5-star in Xavier Griffin. How convoluted, Theo, is the path to QB Reese really earning that one of the 2 starting jobs for the inside linebackers?
I think it's very non-convoluted. Is that a word? Is that non-convoluted?
You think the path is clear?
I think the path is very clear for QB Reese. I mean, I think it's about as open a competition as you're going to find on this football team, right? Sure. You are very clearly looking for, okay, we've got a bunch of guys that have shown good things throughout the season, right? And reasons to like these guys as a starter for this 2026 roster. There is a window for a true freshman, like we talked about, to win a starting job, right? I think that QB Reese and Caden Jones are probably the 2 that I'd highlight as having the inside track. I think it's basically just, okay, it's a sprint to the finish now. It's who is going to step up when we get back onto the practice field in July and show that they not just deserve to be on the field, they need to be on the field for this team to reach its full potential. Somebody's going to step up, and I believe if I was a betting man, my money would be on QB Reese.
Hunter's money's obviously on QB Reese, but because you put him on this list, Hunter, was it all because of the words, the nice things that Tim Keenan has said for the last year?
Yeah, Tim and Deontay. They both said nice things. And I mean, the thing is with QB Reese is when we're thinking about breakouts for the 2025 season, people are saying, oh, it could be QB Reese, all this, all that. And it wasn't. So, I mean, maybe the 3rd time's the charm. I think I even wrote that line in there. I think Theo really hit all the points. I think there's definitely an open competition for inside linebackers. Caleb Woodson has a spot, and I think QB Reese might have the other, but then you got Caden Jones and I'm blanking.
Caden Jones, Luke Metz, you've got to have Duke Johnson.
Abdul Sanders.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Xavier Griffin, that's the name I was thinking of. But yeah, I think he hit all the right points. I'm hoping that QB does something big because based off how much Deontay and Tim, 2 former captains, are speaking of him when they're not asked about QB, they're asked who is someone that you expect to do well next season or something like that. And they both say QB Reese, and I'm hoping that he follows that track.
I agree. And I don't think that QB not playing all that much last year was much fault of his own. I mean, obviously, yeah, the window could have potentially existed, but I even think, like, I'm blanking on which game I think it was ULM, right, where he went out, got some time on the field, and it was like, oh, here's QB Reese is the arrival here. And then Nakai Hill-Green just gradually starts really settling in and elevating his level of play, right? And you reached a point where you had 3 veterans that you trusted rotation-wise on the field for Alabama on the inside. That does not exist this year. It's not on the roster, right? You have 1 veteran in Woodson, and outside of that, okay, it's time. And yeah, like you said, all these guys love QB Reese. Wasn't Lawson just brought it up at the combine unprompted? Like, you hear the name time and time again. Feels like it's time.
I agree.
And so to round out the article, you guys can read it at BamaCentral.com. 5 breakout players for the 2026 season. Hunter, your honorable mentions, you were Rico Scott, Derek Meadows, Jackson Lloyd, Jeremiah Beeman, and we've already talked about Justin Hill a little bit. I'll just open up the floor to you to kind of conclude this conversation. Which of these, what do you make of these honorable mentions? I guess my favorite of this group is Jackson Lloyd. But what do you look at these honorable mentions and think about their roles in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, Jackson was probably the main one where I was like, oh, maybe I should put him instead of Lazier Brooks or someone like that. But I didn't end up going with that. I mean, I think it's really eye-opening that Ryan Grubb says in March that they have their left tackle established, and it's someone who barely played before. I think that's super exciting. So, I mean, definitely he's a prime breakout candidate that I probably could have put in that top 5 section. And then if I had to pick one more, I would have gone with Rico Scott. I remember last year, kind of in that same conversation with QB Reese, where everyone's thinking, oh, this is going to be the breakout for offense. And he looked good against Florida State. I think he had a touchdown and a couple of receptions in there. But after that, Lazier Brooks took that wide receiver 4 role. And now that the wide receiver 3 role, in my opinion, is the only one that's fully open, I think Rico could have that while Noah Rogers is out.
We will see how it goes for Alabama football this fall. Make sure you follow Hunter De Siver at Hunter De Siver _ on the at Hunter De Siver. Excuse me. There's no underscore. That's all for Katie and Theo at Hunter De Siver on the Twitter machine for all the football coverage and basketball as well. Theo, you want to keep the conversation going and talk about some freshmen, because last night I wrote about 5 freshmen that I think can contribute. One of them being very, very obvious. The others, I think, will be a little bit of, not question marks, but there's going to be just a couple hurdles to get them to contributing. Last night I wrote this on BamaCentral.com. You can read it right there. 5 freshmen poised to contribute. I went with EJ Crowell. We talked about this on Monday. I ended up mixing up my list just a little bit. I ended up going with EJ Crowell. I went with Sedarian Morgan. I went with Trayshawn Brown, Jira Edwards, and Xavier Griffin. The 2 guys that I had left off the list were Jordan Edmonds and Jamarian Matthews, the defensive end, also out of Gainesville. I think EJ Crowell is obvious. I think that's the easiest pick in the world and just had to be on the list. The rest of this, though, I think you've got hurdles for Sedarian, for Trayshawn Brown. I think you've got big hurdles for Xavier Griffin with the depth chart and the bunch of bodies at inside linebacker, and a huge the same applies to Jira Edwards as well. So with that being kind of the backdrop, Theo, outside of EJ Crowell, who are the freshmen, maybe pick 2 that you think have the chance to make the biggest names for themselves this fall?
I'm sorry, you think there are hurdles for Sedarian Morgan?
Because of Rico Scott, because of Ryan Coleman Williams, because of Lazier Brooks, because of Derek Meadows, because of Noah Rogers when he returns. I think the depth chart is pretty large. Do I think you can't get over it?
We've had this conversation. We've had this conversation each of the last 2 years. Will the freshman get onto the field? The answer is yes.
Yeah,
the answer is Sedarian Morgan is too talented of a player. You don't keep the Gulf of Mexico on the sidelines. You throw him onto the field. I believe that is what will happen early and often. I mean, we've seen in each of the last 2 years, like I said, with a freshman getting out there and putting up some just very big numbers, being one of the more trusted guys. And I don't know if his path will mirror Ryan Williams more closely, where it's, wow, right away, hit the ground running, incredible production from this freshman, or if it will be more of a Lazier Brooks, where steadily on the field, no, wow, all of a sudden, he's your best receiver in a big game late in the season. I think that is.
Can I throw out another one that he could be?
Let's hear it.
This is what you're not considering. Go to 2024. 2024, same body style. We bring in Caleb Odom out of Georgia. He comes in as a true freshman. 7 catches, 65 yards. That's it. Seven in 12 games. He plays in 12 games. He played in every game. Big body receiver, obviously transferred to Ole Miss, but same body style, same type. 7 catches, 65 yards.
I do not think that is what is in the cards for Sedarian Morgan. I believe just the way that we've, first of all, seen him perform, right? 8A obviously is something that we are capable of looking into too much. I don't think this is a case of that. I think between that, the way guys have talked about him, and then just the obvious reasons to believe that he will be a big player year one make me think that he is very much in the mix for big yards, big production right away. So he is absolutely one of my selections. And then the other one I think is going to have to be Jair Edwards, just purely because of being too good to be kept off the field. Like, all the assessments of him as a prospect are just, this is about as college ready as a high school player will be. And the room is so absurdly talented, but so is he. And I just think that with the expectation already kind of presumably being, a lot of rotations, a lot of, nobody should ever be tired on this football field because we have the talent to ensure that doesn't happen. Jair Edwards will be right in the mix. I don't know how large the role will be, but I think that he's a guy who is on the field a bunch and very rarely looks like a freshman for Alabama.
So here's my thing with Sedarian Morgan. I'm more towards Joe's side for this year. I think he'll do better than Caleb Odom did. I don't think he'll have 7 receptions. I think he'll probably have like 20, maybe 20. There's just too many cooks in the kitchen right now, wide receiver, for him to really shine. However, in 2027, I think he will be the number 1 receiver on the team. Just not this year. I don't think he'll be a starter this year at really any point unless there's injuries. I think he's just kind of warming up a bit. But in 2027, I think he'll be the top target on the team. Simple as that.
Everett Osmer joining us on the Facebook page. We love Bama Central. We love you too, Everett, as well. Appreciate you commenting on the Facebook. Anybody can comment on the Facebook. I'm not trying to say that Sedarian is going to be bad by any means, by any sort of stretch of the imagination. I think that he will have more receptions and more production than Caleb Odom did in 2024. But I just don't know about, is he going to be the 3rd best wide receiver on the team? Because Derek Meadows does the exact same things that he does. And he's got 2 years of production. And granted, anything can happen in fall camp, but I think that Meadows gets the first crack at these big body receiver role. And obviously Meadows won't get 100% of that role. He's going to come off the field here and there, and that'll be where Sedarian Morgan gets on the field. I think he's going to be a playmaker. I think when the ball gets thrown his way, it's going to be, we need to throw the ball more his way. And you're going to have people walking out of Bryant-Denny Stadium thinking, why are we throwing the ball more to number 8? Right. I just think that he's got a lot of people in front of him on the depth chart, and that's going to. I think he's going to end up. I think 20, 25. I feel better about 25, 28 receptions, 25, 28 receptions for about 400 yards, and probably about 4 or 5 touchdowns. Because I bet you he's going to get some big play type of action for Alabama
this year. You think he's going to get 4 or 5 touchdowns?
Between 3 and 5, I feel good about that. Yeah,
decent amount. All right. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I really have no notes for that. I agree with pretty much everything. I like Derek Meadows and what he did in A-Day. He had like 9 targets or something ridiculous. So I do see him slightly ahead of Sedarian right now, just based off seniority and just his targets on A-Day and stuff like that. But 2028 or 2027, Sedarian's the guy, just not right now.
So, Hunter, he's going. Theo is going Sedarian Morgan and Jira Edwards as two freshmen, in addition to EJ Crowell, because I think EJ Crowell is like the most obvious pick in the world. We all think he's going to be the dude as a running back, or one of the couple dudes at running back. Hunter, outside of I guess now EJ Crowell and Sedarian Morgan, who are two freshmen that you think will contribute in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at your picks right now, and I agree with pretty much all of them. In terms of contributing the most, I'm not going to say Trayshawn Brown. I thought on A-Day, he really surprised me. Like, he was this lowly recruited guy, and you got EJ Crowell on the same team, on the same position, and the running back room it's kind of wide open. I mean, you seem to have an established depth chart with maybe like Daniel Hill at the 1 and Kevin Riley 2. Then from there, it kind of fizzles. I don't see Trayshawn Brown absolutely dominating the season by any means, but I think when he gets on the field if Alabama's winning by 50 against East Carolina, he could probably score. Like, I think he's super dynamic and super versatile. So I like him. I don't love him, but I don't expect him to be that amazing, obviously, first year with all the running backs in the room. And then with Xavier Griffin, it's kind of the opposite. Highly recruited guy. And the linebacker room is a bit open right now. And I don't expect him to start or anything, but I do expect him to make some noise in his first season. I think he'd probably get maybe 1 to 2 sacks, maybe like 15 to 20 tackles total. And I think I don't want to say he's in a similar boat to Sedarian Morgan, where he's going to be the number 1 linebacker in 2027, but I think he'd start.
Well, Alabama brought in a top 10 recruiting class, depends on whatever recruiting outlet you are looking at in 2026. So I think there's going to be a lot of players. In my little research last night for this article, 20 different players played in 10 or more games as true freshmen for Kalen DeBoer over the last 2 seasons. I think it was 11 in 2024 played in 10 or more games, and then 9 played in 10 or more games this past season. So you look at this 2026 class, there will be some guys that get some action this fall for Alabama. Theo, any other football conversation or thought you have before I let Hunter De Siver kind of take us all the way down the path of the NBA Combine?
No, hand it over.
All right, let's get right to the NBA Combine after we tell you about our friends at Purple Turtle Roofing. At Purple Turtle Roofing, we're not just another contractor. We're your neighbor and your advocate when it comes to protecting your home or business. With years of hands-on experience, top-tier certification, and a commitment to excellence, we've built a reputation as Alabama's go-to roofing solution. We specialize in residential roofing, commercial roofing, emergency storm repairs, full-on roof replacements, insurance claim support, and more. Visit them online today at roofturtle.com. Or call them at 877-PT-ROOF-5. You can schedule your free roof inspection right there online or over the phone. They'll come out, check out your roof, make sure that you don't have any trouble spots, any screws loose, any shingles cracked. They'll make sure that you've got the peace of mind that you deserve. Check them out online, roofturtle.com. Purple Turtle Roofing. Roofing with heart, built to last. All right, Hunter, we have done NBA Combine for the last 2 days now, talking about Amari Allen's measurements, not being 6'8", being 6'5". Yesterday, the boys did a little vertical leaping, did some shooting drills. Today, at 1 o'clock, is day 1 of the scrimmages. You guys can see that on ESPN, ESPN2. It'll be on either of those 2 networks. If you are sitting around the office or sitting around the house working from home, watch that at 1 o'clock. You'll be able to see Amari Allen play 5-on-5 and LeBaron 5-on as well. So I'm just going to get out of the way and let you kind of take us down the path of the NBA Combine. What did you make of Amari Allen's height discrepancy? What did you make of LeBaron 5-on size, height, and weight? I think Theo wanted to talk about his physicality with you. Just kind of where do these 2 guys stand after the NBA draft lottery on Sunday, and now that the Combine has started to unfurl, what are you feeling about these 2 guys' draft statuses?
Yeah, so last year, I don't remember why I did it. It was probably because of Mark Sears, but I did a story that was literally just what Grant Nelson, Mark Sears, and LeBaron Filan's measurements were. There's no substance to it whatsoever. And I think I did it because people were curious about Mark Sears' height and if that would play a role in whether he'd get picked or not. And anyways, this year, I told Katie, I'm like, I'm gonna skip it because I don't feel like anyone really asks about LeBaron's height or Amari Allen's height. And then I see that he's not 6'8", Amari Allen. He's 6'5". So that is a little, I don't want to say scary, but for a guy that is questioning whether he wants to be in the NBA draft, like still go through with it or come back to Alabama, it definitely plays a factor. I mean, it could change your position. There's not that many 6'5" small forwards in the NBA. It's more 6'8", around there. And I'm confident that he could play like a shooting guard type role. He played the role of a point forward for Alabama a lot this past season. But I'm not sure if it'll factor into him sliding a bit in this draft. He's going to be getting evaluations over the next few days. I'll say right off the bat, LeBaron's staying, and there's really no stories for him for the next week until he gets drafted, until we find out what team he goes to. Like, he's been top 15 every single lot. His height was as expected. His weight was as expected, wingspan, whatever. His shooting numbers, I think I'd have to look at him again, but they were fine. Like, he's not Stephen Curry. Like, I mean, he's still a good shooter. The reason why he came back to Alabama is because he needed to increase just leadership and also 3-point shooting, which he did amazingly. Like, there's a huge percentage increase there from year 1 to year 2. And so for him, he's fine. But Amari, the height is a bit of a concern, but I know we're about to talk about the vertical. So you could.
You're doing just fine. Go ahead, Theo.
Yeah, what do you? I mean, we saw the physical measurements come out. Just what's your takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the measurements, I think the 6'5" is kind of
the physical. Sorry.
Oh, you mean so like the what's it called? They're not the measurables. What I know,
yeah, like the physical attributes, I guess.
Yeah, agility and all that stuff. Yeah, that's a high vertical. He had a 42.5, which is tied for second in the entire combine. And I was a bit surprised when I saw that because, I mean, Amari had a few dunks at Alabama, but I wouldn't say he was some sort of high flyer. Like, he wasn't looking like Jackson Richardson will be or someone like that. So I think it does help that he was 6'5", like in his measurables, but when he jumped, I mean, he's got some hops, and that definitely helps his draft stock a bit. So I think on Monday when he was measured, people were really concerned, but then on Tuesday when he did his vertical, people were like, all right, maybe it's not so bad that he's 6'5", and maybe it'll help him in the drafts and when he gets like scouting and general managers and front office guys talking to him over this week for his decision.
Yeah, I mean, that was my takeaway when I saw the height. It's like, wow, this vertical just became very, very important. And I think, so for context, I backed off my take of Amari Allen will absolutely be entering the NBA draft. When I saw the measurement, when I saw, wow, okay, we just lost 3 inches, and that changes things, right? And I even saw Bleacher Report wrote an article, winners and losers from the NBA Combine, listing Amari Allen as a loser.
Yeah.
The consensus is there that, wow, okay, this really does change things. 40-inch vertical is the first step towards making up ground there. But me and Joe were kind of talking, I guess, yesterday about what does Amari Allen need to do throughout the combine, workouts with teams, everything, to overcome the loss of height? Is it possible? What do you think he needs to do to convince teams that, yes, still take me in the mid-first round?
So for starters, something I saw yesterday or the day before is the scrimmage rosters, and he wasn't on it. And neither was LeBaron, and neither was AJ DeBansa or Darius Acuff or any of these big names. So I'm not sure why he would be off of it. I mean, because he's not a big name. He's not a lottery guy. He's going to be picked in the 20s if he were to go. So I was a little confused why he did that. LeBaron, he didn't participate last year, and he was going to be in that same scenario where he'd be a late first, early second kind of deal. So I'm not going to say, oh, wow, he's not coming back, like, or he's coming back to Alabama just because of that. Like, just because LeBaron had a variety of factors. But I think this next week, if he's not going to do the scrimmages, and he already did the shooting and we don't know what the shooting numbers yet are, and we only saw the vertical. I think he's just got to see what the scouts say. I think for the first 23 games or so of this past season, he looked like he was going to be a top 15 pick, top 20 pick. And then those last 10, unfortunately, 8 of them were after the feature that I wrote. He took a big slump, and the same thing happened in all these mocks and all that. And these GMs are looking for any sport. You're hoping that the guy gets better throughout the season. And I don't think he did towards the final couple months. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, he's still a first round pick, but I think how these GMs talk with him in terms of what he did in the first half or the second half of the season, if he could somehow find a way to replicate the first half during these NBA workouts, that's kind of the main key.
So, no, go ahead, Theo.
No, you go, Joe. It's all you.
I was just going to bring us to a bottom line here, where we see we see Amari Allen projected at right now at 25 to 35 in a lot of these mock drafts. Is that high enough for him to stay in the draft pool?
Me or you?
Yeah, Hunter.
Okay.
You're the expert.
Yeah, fair enough. Is that high enough? So I think when we asked him after the Michigan game, what's your plans? He first said, I'm coming back. And then I asked him again. Someone else asked him, and then I asked him again in just kind of a different way. And he said, oh, well, it depends on what my agent says. And so he's maintaining his college eligibility throughout this whole thing, which I think is very smart. It's what you should do. It's what LeBaron did. It's what a bunch of other guys probably are doing in this draft class. Probably a couple dozen of them. So I think the bottom line is, if he doesn't like being at like 28, 29, 30 in the draft, then I think he might come back. Right now, I would say, right off the top of my head, this is not official or anything, I would say there's like a 60% chance that he's back.
I'm right there. I think that's my number as well. And it's just such a stunning turnaround for so convinced he's going. And then, man, things can move really fast in the world of pro sports. So, to, I guess, land the plane here, in a world where he does come back, how do you feel about ball dominant Amari Allen leading the Alabama offense next year, Hunter?
Yeah, he'd be the guy. I don't think he's the type of player like LeBaron where he's going to get 22 or whatever it was points per game. But I mean, the thing is with this team is there are like no guards. We don't know if Aiden Holloway is going to play, and the only other like true guard right now on the team would be Preston Murphy Jr. You got 3 guys who are freshmen who are all 6'5", 6'6" wings. So we don't know whether they'll be official guards or forwards. Regardless, they're not point guards. And I'm not saying Amari Allen is either, but he's proven that he could fill that point forward role, as I said earlier on the show. And I could see him getting like 17 a game with like 4 assists or something like that. And I don't think he'd be like a top 10 pick necessarily next season, but I definitely think he'd be in the top 20 area if he were to come back. I mean, it's historically guys who are with Nate Oates for year 1 as a freshman are way better in year 2. Look at LeBaron Fallon, look at Aiden Sherrill. I mean, if you want to even forget about freshman, sophomore classes. I mean, look at Mark Sears from year 1 in Alabama versus year 2. Look at Aiden Holloway from year 1 versus this past year. It's proven that they do better in his system, and I think Amari could definitely improve his stock if he were to come back. Not amazingly, but I think he definitely improved his stock.
You see, that's where I wholeheartedly disagree.
Okay.
I think he improves it amazingly. I think the idea is Amari Allen comes back, shows that, look, I've got all these physical gifts, right? And I've got the ability to guard 3.5 positions on the floor for you guys at the NBA level.
Sure.
And I've a very, very above average rebounder for my size. And I did enough to potentially get drafted in the first round as a wing at my size. And then I came back and I led the Alabama offense. And mind you, this Alabama offense, like you alluded to with all the wings, is going to be the most NBA-esque offense that Nate Oates has ever had.
Okay.
If Amari Allen comes out and leads that offense to just similar heights of a typical Nate Oates offense, you are looking at, in a weaker class next year, a top 10 NBA draft pick.
Top 10. I just don't think I'm willing to say he's top 10 just yet. I mean, I still think top 20. I don't know if I would say anything past 12 if he were to come back, but I could be wrong. And I'm hoping I am. I'm hoping Amari's the number 1 overall pick if he were to come back. But I'm not sure it could happen with him being a 6'5" guy. Obviously, the rebounding numbers are impressive, but an NBA team isn't necessarily going to take a 6'5" guy to be their rebounder. They're going to fill him in another role.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, kind of my maybe spoke there. It all comes down to, I think, if he comes back, it will be to be a guard. Like, that's kind of where I'm at with this, because, like, LeBaron Philon returned to Alabama to fill a certain role. He was told things he needed to work on by the NBA. And as much as it was, okay, LeBaron Philon is the superstar of Alabama, it was just as much, okay, LeBaron Philon is auditioning for the NBA. He's showing all the things that he was told he needed to do. And he did them at a very high level, and congrats, you're a lottery pick as your reward. That is, I believe, what it would look like for Amari Allen. Not that he won't get the rebounds, not that he won't excel at the things he was excelling at last year, but I think it will be a lot more of a set. Okay, the NBA needs to see that I can be a guard. They need to see that I can be a high volume scorer. They need to see that I can lead an offense, et cetera, et cetera. That is, I believe, what Amari Allen would be coming back to Tuscaloosa to do.
Gotcha.
Well, we will find out if he's back or if he's in the NBA draft in the next 2 weeks. We are 2 weeks away from the deadline. He's got to May 27th at midnight to decide if he wants to stay in the NBA draft pool or if he wants to return to Tuscaloosa. So, and Hunter De Siver will be following it and covering it for us at BamaCentral.com. Make sure you follow him at Hunter De Siver on the Twitter machine. Make sure you follow Theo Fernandez at Theo Fernandez _. Ask him what he's doing today with his off day out in California. We're going to have a lot of fun the rest of the week. Tomorrow, we'll be talking to Katie Wyndham. We're going to talk to Katie Wyndham about the NCAA softball regional as Tuscaloosa is hosting the first regional. And if Alabama wins, they'll be hosting super regionals next week as well. Alabama, the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament, despite coming up second in the SEC tournament and second in the regular season. We'll see, and we'll get Katie Wyndham to explain how that math actually works out tomorrow. We've had a lot of fun with you guys today. We appreciate everybody who listens to us on Apple Podcast, Amazon, Spotify. If you do listen on those platforms, please go ahead and subscribe to us. Leave us a review. Leave us a rating. It really, really helps the algorithm. I know Cam Metzger already did that for us on Apple Podcast. I really appreciate your rating and your review, Cam. Those very, very, very nice words. I appreciate you taking your time out to do that for us. So thank you guys, everybody who leaves us a rating or a review on those podcast platforms. Subscribe to the Bama Central YouTube channel. You won't miss anything from the show or any behind-the-scenes coverage of Alabama athletics. Find us on the Bama Central Facebook page. Make sure you're calling Derek Daniel for all of your insurance needs right here at Derek Daniel State Farm right here in Northport, and use Purple Turtle Roofing for all of your roofing concerns. Call them today for your free roof inspection, 877-787-6635. We're going to have a lot of fun with you guys tomorrow right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.